G'day, how you doing? Sorry I haven't been interacting on the live chat this morning. I've been a bit panicked because the phone's been up and down and dropping in and out, and what have I got popping up here? GoPro something or other update. Oh, there we go, hang on. Yeah, my internet's been terrible this morning. We had a couple of disconnections, we've been wavering, zero upload and pretty good upload, but it seems to be, fingers crossed, now that I've got the phone all the way over in the corner of the room, it seems to be stabilized and coming through relatively well. So as I said, fingers crossed that is the case. If I do have a particular video one morning that doesn't work, where we have some really bad streaming or whatnot, what I might have to do is go and buy myself some particular mobile broadband internet or something or other, because I've been using my phone for years. Because some of you might know I travelled around Australia for a couple of years in a caravan, so the cheapest way to access the internet with a decent amount of whatever it's called, megabytes, whatever they are, megabytes, gigabytes, whatever, is to use my mobile phone on a very high plan, because in Australia, mobile broadband or dedicated mobile broadband is very, very expensive. As I say that, I look over to the phone and we're buffering again. So let me know in the comments just quickly before we get started if it's coming through reasonably well. Let me just check my software here. If you're interested in doing live broadcast, I use a software called OBS. It's a free software. It works on a Mac. I'm not sure if it works on a Windows, but it's telling me that the stream's coming through pretty good here. Anything that's green is okay. Before it was going, you know, shades of orange and red, so that was okay. So I think we're going all right. Let's give it a shot. As I said, if it doesn't, I'll be talking to myself for, you know, the next hour or so, but don't stress. If it's not working for you, turn it off, come back and check the replay later, and if the replay's horrible, I'll check that. Then I'll replay this tomorrow or Friday or something or other, and I'll go and get myself a, I'll try and get myself a 4G or whatever that stuff's called for the internet. Big news, couple of great things are happening. Sorry about that, I just got the disconnected sign again. What I was saying was that the last two times that I've presented this presentation, it was in excess of $300 per ticket per person to come along and see the 5 presentations that we had over that weekend or that day. So I am going to be doing it for the huge sum of absolutely zero for you guys, because I just think, number one, that this is a great time to be spending some time building and strengthening our online presence for our businesses. And yes, it would have, in hindsight, it would have been nice to have started doing this late last year or earlier this year, but it's never too late. It's never too late. You can absolutely build something that is very valuable in a relatively short period of time, and then keep adding to it and adding to it. The beautiful thing about online business or building an online business is the majority of it tends to be, you know, you do it once and it's there forever. So you can keep building and adding to it and making it bigger and better, because a lot of it tends to be like automated or downloads or content that you create once and then can sell hundreds or thousands of times if you're lucky enough. Anyway, we're going to talk about that on Thursday morning, so make sure if you've got any photography friends or anyone that might be interested in building a photography business, to tell them to come and join the stream on Thursday morning, because we're going to do a really high value, well, hopefully most of our streams are really high value, but the one on Thursday in particular, I'm really looking forward to maybe in a year or 2 years' time to getting a couple of emails back saying, hey, remember that live feed you did about business and strengthening and building an online presence? Well, I did this and that, and I followed a few of your steps, and I went here and I built this and I did that, and now I've created an entire income stream from essentially you planting that seed. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a few emails like that in the future after we present that particular topic. Now, we're dropping in and out a little bit, but we're going to march ahead, and hopefully it works. There's some other big things coming up as well. I'm talking to one of Australia's most talented photographers about presenting a PowerPoint presentation next week. So stick around for that. Hopefully I'll be able to announce that by the end of this week once I figure out how I can get another photographer from another location to present into this YouTube channel. Maybe Skype, not sure. We'll figure that out so that we can get a really great experience with that. Lots of good stuff coming up, but today we're going to be doing, let me show you actually, what are we doing? I'll open this one up. This is the YouTube thumbnail. We're going to be compositing, I think it's about 9 images, into creating this really over-the-top, grand composite. Okay, we've got the river here, the bridge, the waterfall, the mountains, the clouds. In fact, when I entered this into the 𝗂𝗵𝗂𝗍 State Awards, it's based loosely on or inspired by the work of the romantic landscape painters of the mid-1800s, in particular Albert Bierstadt. I chatted about Albert Bierstadt and romantic photos in one of the previous live feeds, so jump back and check that out. But when I entered this into the State Awards, New South Wales State Awards, it did get a silver with distinction, I think, which is a very, very good result. But one of the judges' comments after it was finished judging basically said that, you know, it's got everything, in a kind of sarcastic way. It's got waterfalls, it's got bridges, it's got rivers, it's got mountains, it's got incredible, you know, clouds and fog and light. All it needs is a boat shed, and we've got the whole, you know, the whole box of tricks. I think potentially what they didn't pick up on was that was the point. The grandscapes of those romantic painters from the mid-1850s did have kind of everything going for them. The beautiful, you know, rivers or lakes with, you know, majestic trees and waterfalls and mountains and light and dramatic clouds and all kind of jam-packed into one incredible scene. So that was basically what I was trying to recreate. It doesn't really have any other story other than an exercise in trying to recreate one of those romantic grandscapes. Excuse me. If you're going to follow along, there's a link in the description down below to download the 9 images, and then I'll show you how to bring them into Photoshop. It might be best, see how you go, it might be best to just watch along the first time and then come back this afternoon or a bit later or after lunch or straight away if you like, watch the replay, and you can slow me down. There's a little cog symbol down in the bottom right corner to slow me down, and if I'm not going slow enough, and follow along that way. Okay? So, with that being said, hopefully it's going well. Let me have a quick peek. Just ducking off screen there to get a bit of a view from the phone. No one's saying it's not working, and someone said it's settled down now, so fingers crossed we found a bit of a sweet spot for the phone. We're going to charge ahead anyway. Let's see. Now, what you will do is you will download those example images. And on a Mac, you'll come to your Finder menu. On a PC, you'll go to, I think it's called Explorer. Click on there. Hopefully there's no incriminating evidence anywhere in here. Click on my downloads and you'll see Grand Waterfall black and white zip file. If I double click that, what happened? We lost it. Go back. If I double click that, you'll see it will create a nice blue folder like this. If I double click that again, you'll see there's all the images, and I think it's much similar in Windows. You might have to right click the zip file and select expand contents or something like that, or expand zip folder, and it should produce another folder, and then inside that other folder you'll have these images. If you have trouble on a Windows machine, just Google how to open a zip file and you'll get those instructions. Okay, now if we open all of these into Photoshop at once, I can click on the bottom image there, hold down Shift, click on the top, that will highlight the lot. And in this case, if I right click, will this work? Open with Photoshop 2019 in my case. This Mac is a very old Mac and it won't allow me to update to the latest versions. Okay, we've got them all open. Now, if for some reason you have any trouble doing it that way, once you've expanded the folder or double-clicked to expand the zip file and you've found that folder, seems like we're working okay as I catch a glimpse over to the right there. If you have any trouble, what you can do is go File, Open, and then navigate to your downloads, and then open them from there. You can open them individually, or you can select the lot and just click Open, okay? So fingers crossed, we've got that happening. All my images are kind of mixed around. Doesn't really matter, but for the ease of it, I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is next. Oops. Where's 8? Where is 8? Where is 8? Ground waterfall. There is no 8. Okie dokie. Let me just see what 8 is. Oh, there's no 8 there either. Oh, it's another sky. Okay. We won't need 8 for this example. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Crisis averted. 8 is just another copy of a similar sky, but we'll use the one sky for this example. It will be fine. The other sky is much similar. Anyway, click on. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Click on number 1, and what I've done is I've converted them all to black and white because for most of us, this might be our very first composite. And to be honest, I never quite managed to handle the color particularly well with this particular image anyway. It was very troublesome. So we're not going to try and add another degree of difficulty by trying to manipulate the color as well as the light and the contrast. So by doing our composites in black and white, we only need to match 2 things, light and contrast, and not worry about the color. So once we get comfortable with matching the light and contrast, and then we can move to composites where we need to match color as well. Okay, so click on Final 1 TIFF file if you're following along at home or watching the replay and following along. Just going to make that a little bit smaller, Command or Control minus. Let's zoom back a couple. And next what I want to do is expand the canvas size. The easiest way to do that is to click the crop tool. And I've got my YouTube thumbnail set there, so hit clear if you have a ratio set. I've just refreshed that. And what I need is, there's going to be a little bit more sky above here. I don't really need much on the bottom, but I need a little bit left and a little bit right. And look, to be honest, this image is probably not going to turn out exactly the same as the one I showed you, but the techniques in creating it will be exactly the same. So the skills we learn will be all the same at the same time. So just expand that out, it doesn't matter, something like that. Let's say we go roughly about the same amount of the image width out to the left and out to the right, and about half the image height upwards, in an upwards direction. We can always expand the canvas later if need be. Okay, now a little bit about this image. A lot of these images are captured from the same waterfall, and I can't even remember the name, and I didn't do my research, to be honest. And even if I did do my research, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it properly anyway. If you've been to this particular waterfall in Iceland, absolutely let everyone know what the name of it's called. It's a spectacular location. You can view it from this little staircase here, walk right up there. There's another staircase on the right. You can kind of climb up into the ice hills here, and you can even walk behind it, which is pretty spectacular if you like getting your camera turned into an icicle. But it was absolutely spectacular when we were there. Lots of snow. Now, the reason I was telling you that is I was part of a photographic workshop as one of the leaders, one of the guides, if you like, one of the tutors. and I didn't get a lot of time to take or give much thought to this particular location, and so I possibly could have and should have taken a panoramic of the entire foreground, but I didn't, and I'm left with a bunch of kind of mishmashed photos. And what I want to do with what I've got, because I don't have what I want, is try and expand out this from a portrait to more of a landscape. Okay, the reason I'm using this one and not say this one or this one is because I absolutely love the real beautiful black glossy water from this portrait, and we're going to try and incorporate at least a little bit of that into the foreground. Okay, so let's click from our crop tool just back to our standard move tool up the top of the tool palette there. Click onto image number 2, final 2, and we'll combine our first image together. Command or Control A, Command or Control C for copy. Okay, click back onto final 1, Command or Control V for victory. We'll paste that on top. Now, what I want to do is combine, see this line of the left edge of the river? I want to combine this line down. But in this case, this image is taken from a wider angle. This one's zoomed in, this one's wider. So what I want to do is expand or make larger this new image so it blends in and sort of fills in a patch down here. What we need to do is a couple of things. We're going to lower the opacity down to around 60%. Just hover on the word opacity above the layer stack here, and then click and drag to the left till you get to around 60%. Sounds pretty good to me. Then press Command or Control T for free transform. Command or Control T, yeah? And on the latest versions of Photoshop, if we just grab a corner and drag out like that, it will constrain the ratio. So you can see the height and the width are basically staying the same. Well, they are staying the same within the same ratio. If you're using an older version of Photoshop and when you pull the corner it goes a bit funky and freestyle, just press Command Z to go back and then hold down Shift whilst you pull the corner out, and that will constrain the ratio. Adobe likes making things difficult for us tutors and teachers and Photoshop YouTubers or whatever. No, seriously, they don't like making it difficult. They like making it easier for everyone else and listening to what their users want. Unfortunately, what happens is when they change keyboard shortcuts like this, it means that I need to explain it twice for 2 different versions, and I also need to go back and modify, 1/3 of my online course content to make sure that it matches up with what Photoshop currently represents or offers or has as keyboard shortcuts. But enough about my problems. What we're going to do is expand this to roughly 150%. You can see up the top here, I've got 138. And you'll know throughout my course, if you're an Easy Way member, that I say that expanding beyond about 120% is probably a no-no. And generally, yes, that is, because you start to lose resolution. We're stretching the pixels out and losing resolution. But, and this is a bit of a big but, because this section of the image is only going to occupy maybe 1/6 or 1/5 of the total image, we can get away with it, okay? Because it's only occupying a section that is 20%, we can get away with it. If you were combining 2 images that were taking up a really, really large space, then maybe not. So, because keep in mind, we're combining 9 images, and when I was combining this for myself, I'm combining full resolution, 7,000-8,000 pixels wide from a D800 camera. So when they come together, the resolution of the overall file is much, much, much greater than what one single raw file would have been. So I can take the final composited image if I like, if I'm concerned about it, and then resize it back down to 8,000 or 9,000 pixels wide, and we'll have an incredibly high definition image at that level. You can print this image up to a couple of meters wide. Not this one that we're creating, because I'm only giving you I think 2000 pixel wide images, because you need a really high strength computer. That's not the right word, is it? You know, high processing capability computer with lots of RAM and lots of memory to be able to put this together using 9 full high-res images. And in fact, I'm not even sure this old Mac would be capable of doing that anymore. My Windows machine absolutely would. It can handle, you know, 10 gigabyte, 20 gigabyte files without too much dramas, but I'm not sure the Mac can. Anyway, that being said, roughly 150%. And the next step is, we have this little kind of edge of the river with those little shrubs, and we want to, and it can be a little bit hard to see, but we want to line up the edge of the river and the shrubs, and you'll get better at kind of seeing the two images at once with experience. But for me, something like that. Click OK, and it doesn't matter if you get it wrong because we can move it in a minute. Turn the opacity back to 100%, add a layer mask down the bottom here, the rectangle with a circle in it. And then, as we would with the rest of our workflow, Command or Control I to invert. That will hide that new layer behind a black mask. B for brush. And we are going to start with 100% opacity, 100% flow. And come over here to this little drop menu and we'll change the hardness to 0. Come down to our brush settings here, our palette if you like. Click on the little black and white icon to change our colors to pure white and pure black. Okay, and using a white brush, we will zoom in, Command or Control plus a couple of times, and I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. You can see I'm using a 60 pixel brush here. Now this tutorial this morning, it could take an hour, it could take 2. So if you need to jump off and go and do something else or whatnot, then do that. The replay will be here for you to come and back and pick it up later. And what you can see, I want to match up that edge of that river first. And you'd think I've done this before because that one matches absolutely perfectly, but I'm going to have to mess it up a little bit so that you guys can see what's going on. Let me just use my arrow keys. Whoop, click on my move tool. Click on my move tool. I'll use my arrow keys and just push down so that you can see here where we come along this bank, it has a little jump up. That doesn't match very well. If that's the case for you and yours doesn't match very well, click on your move tool and just use your up and down arrows to maneuver that till it's absolutely perfect. Okay, something like that. Then go back to our brush, and I'll make a bigger brush now, and I might even zoom back now, Command or Control minus. And look, if you're having trouble keeping up or it's just not working for you, then it might be just best to sit back and enjoy the live stream for now, and then come back later when you're not under the time constraints to try and keep up with what I'm doing. If this was a creative workshop on a Saturday or something, it's likely this would take 3 or 4 hours, to be honest. I'm going to try and take it slow at a reasonable level, but at the same time, 3 or 4 hours is probably a little bit too much for most people, you know. But you will have the option to come back and slow it down. And I'll be talking like this. I don't know, that was pretty creepy, wasn't it? I don't know. Hopefully I can entertain you for however long this tends to go today. All right, as we paint in the rest of this. The other concern I have, it's a bit of an anxiety-inducing day today. The stream's not working great. The other concern is that Photoshop will just stop working. And as you come up to this mountain, you know, with that soft edge brush, maybe it will just blend in like mine does there. You know, I think that's pretty good. I'm not sure if 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is watching along. Good mate 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that's 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 who was on the tour with me there. It's him standing there taking a photo. He might be on the stream. He often joins the stream. Okay, that's pretty good, but this is pretty rubbish, isn't it? Now, the way we're going to make that a little better, B for brush, drop my opacity down to around, let's say 40% I'm feeling. And look, the more you use Photoshop, the more you'll understand and be intuitive as to which brush is going to do which thing or which task the best. And for me, I'm thinking 40% opacity. The flow can stay at 100. And we'll make that brush a little bit bigger. And we'll just dab, 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 and just blend that off. Same through here. And what we're doing is adding a little bit of that detail into that long exposure, and that's working really, really well. Let me just check if everyone's still with us. Okay, so Cheryl says when she downloads the TIFF files in Dropbox, the first two, she's getting an error. If everyone at home is getting that error, let me know in the comments below, and I'll go and make sure that I can download those files again. But in saying that, the files I'm using were also downloaded from that link into that zip folder and then back into Photoshop. So it was working at some point. So let me know if you're having trouble downloading those as well. And Cheryl, if you're still having trouble, email me, adam@𝗟𝗏𝗡𝗍𝗏𝗄𝗏𝗏.com, just .com, and I will get you those files one way or another, I promise. Okay, everything else going okay? Do we not have my live stream counter today? I can't see my live stream counter. That's a bit of a shame. Okay, anyway, whatever. Keep on going. Looks like we've got the important stuff. The important stuff. If you're loving this and you don't want to miss out on the business presentation on Thursday, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button if you're enjoying it. We haven't got far though, have we? It will take me 4 hours, the way I am going. Okay, we've done one. If you can do one image, blend them together, you can do multiple. Now the secret in blending images in Photoshop is to use the natural seams of the image as the joins. If you've ever composited a sky into a foreground, that is a composite image. And we've done a couple of those in the live streams previously. Was it yesterday? I'm losing track of the days. I think yesterday we did that. We did a follow along how to composite that sky image. And what we did was we used the horizon as a natural seam. In this particular image, we've used essentially the riverbank and the seam between the snow and the back wall here of the gorge as the seams. So we can always use those, and you'll see as we go through that we're going to use the natural seams of the image to hide our joins. Let's expand out the left-hand side. We're going to go to image 3. Click on image 3, Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Click back on image number 1, Command or Control V. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. Lower the opacity down to 60% roughly. Monica says she thinks the first two files are a duplicate. Maybe that is the case, I'm not too sure. I will go back and make sure. Essentially I'm using the files straight from that zip folder anyway, so if I'm missing anything, you will be missing them too, but you should have everything that I have. Lower that opacity down to 60%. Again, Command or Control T, and again we're going to stretch this out to about 150%. Just keeping my eye on that 150, that will do there. And then, same thing, we have this riverbank here. I'm going to try to get that to kind of match up. I think about there. The bottom doesn't have to match up, don't worry about it. We can crop and tidy up that later. I'm pretty happy with that. It might take you a little bit longer. You can always pause the live stream as well whilst you get a handle on what you're doing, and then restart it again, and you won't be exactly live, but the stream should, I think, pick up from where you were and continue along, okay? even though you're a couple of seconds behind where the actual live stream is. Okay, that's pretty good. Opacity back at 100%. We're going to add a layer mask, the little rectangle with a circle in it. We're going to press Command or Control I to invert. B for brush. Brush back up to 100% opacity, 100% flow. Zoom in a couple, Command or Control plus. You can hold down spacebar, gives you the hand, and you can navigate around your canvas like so. Okay, and again, we're going to try and get this riverbank to match first. Geez, you'd think I'd done this before, wouldn't you? Not bad. I have. In fact, when I travelled Australia, I did, it was close to 40, maybe even 50 live Saturday workshops in all the different towns around Australia. So I've done this multiple times. So please don't get frustrated if you're having trouble. Just, take a breath, relax, and take your time, pause the stream, and just take your time. Just get it right. If it's not matching up, you can go back to the Move tool and use your arrow keys to get that perfect seam. Okay? And I'm not going to blend too much here. And I might even have to move mine, I think. See how I'm getting that copy of the bridge coming in right on the seam. That's not great. Whoops, wrong button. Make my brush a little bigger. I will zoom out. Bigger brush. And I'll just rough this in. Let me just rough that in like that. Now I don't want that bridge. So I'll hit X to go to a black brush. And we'll take out that bridge. But now I've got a hole there. And I can patch that hole, but what I'm going to do is press Command or Control T, which will allow me to move and stretch this image again. And let's move that a considerable distance in. Let's go in like that. Now I don't really want that rock there either. So we might have to do this a little bit roundabouts. Let's click OK. B for brush with a black brush again. And I'm going to remove that rock. And what you can see is I have a natural, let me just click the Move tool. I have a natural seam on the original image here. And then I have a very similar seam. In actual fact, it is the same seam in the image between the snow and the background, if you like, the foreground and the background, here and here, but they don't line up. If I press Command or Control T, what I can do, because I have this one lining up very, very nicely, but that one's not, I need to stretch. So I'm going to come to the top and just make this a little bit bigger. And I'll oversize it a bit and then use my arrows. A little bit more. Use my arrows. A little bit more. So I'm looking at this line and this line at the moment. Okay, they're all that matter. And that looks pretty good. Click OK. B for brush. White brush now. Look at that. Would you look at that? Absolutely beautiful. Lower my opacity down to about 40% and we'll just, no we won't, hit black. I brought in some stuff that I really don't want there. That's fine. What you might notice though, if you've got a real eagle eye, over this side the snow tended to match reasonably well. It wasn't too bad, we didn't really need to do anything. But over here the snow in the central image is a little bit dirty and the snow on the new image is a little bit brighter and whiter. So we will fix that up now. Now that we've got those seams together, we'll fix that up. We're going to add a curves layer. Come down to our black and white cookie here, curves layer. Now, this is a real composite trick. We're going to clip the curves layer to the layer below so it only affects that one layer. The way we do that, the easiest way that I find is to hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, Option or Alt, and hover between these two layers. And you'll see the mouse cursor changes to a little square with a down arrow. When you see that square and down arrow, left click. And you'll now see a little arrow which is clipping the curves layer to the layer below. Now you'll see how powerful this is as we continue through this workflow. But if we grab the little hand, click on the little hand icon at the top of the Properties panel, and click on the white snow that we wish to change. That gives us the exact point. And in actual fact, the water doesn't look too bad. This would be the water down here. So if we come down to the water, I can click and put another point there. What that will do is protect the water whilst we adjust the snow, which is incredible. The snow needs to just darken off to match. Click the top point and just shift down. Absolutely seamless now. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, we've managed to now match in 2 layers. What is next? I think we're going to add, we need to fill in, actually what we're going to do is expand out, using those 2 same images in fact, the top of this ridge line. I need more of that ridge line. Give me a second, how are we travelling? No complaints. That's a good sign, I suppose. No complaints. Okay. Jump back to image number 2. And again, Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Back to image 1, Command or Control V. Okay. I'm just going to switch to my Move tool. I probably didn't need to be honest. And we're going to lower the opacity. 60% will do. Anthony says he's going to drop out and come back and watch later. Great stuff. Great to have you here for that little while, Anthony. We're nearly approaching an hour already. That's okay. That's okay. Now, this particular image, I'm going to use, you can see there's a little bump here. Little bump. You can see that same bump there. So what we're going to do is just line that bump up. And in actual fact, we'll press Command or Control T. And I want to stretch. Oh, we can just make it bigger. Just stretch out like that. Make it bigger. I've gone about 120%. That will give us a little bit more expansion. And using my arrow keys, I've lined that little bump up as best as I can. Click OK. Back up to 100%. Add a layer mask. Command or Control I to invert. B for brush. Zoom in once. Let's go twice initially. X for a white brush, change the opacity to 100%, and we try and get this seam perfect first. Didn't quite work, did it, in my case? Let's try again. X, white brush. Okay, let me go. Mine just needs to bump over 1 or 2 pixels to the left. 1, 2. So click the Move tool, bump over. Mine is absolutely beautiful now. B for brush, and I can now expand that out. Now don't worry too much about this section here. We're going to, well, let's see what happens. Oh, that does merge in rather nice. That bit's come in really, really nicely for me. If it hasn't come in for you, don't worry about it. Don't mess around with that too much. If yours looks rubbish down the bottom here, just leave it. In fact, mine, I need to just blend that off a little. And look, I'm just going to leave that like that. It's not great. In fact, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to make a bit of a mess of it here, like that for now. Okay, it's more about the top here. And in fact, I'm not even going to do anything down there. Just black brush away that edge and leave it as is. White brush the sky in. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's all we're going to do for now. That looks really, really good. Jump back to image number 3, and we're going to use image number 3 to extend the left-hand side. Command or Control A, Command or Control C, back to image 1, Command or Control V. Lower the opacity, it's the same every time. Lower the opacity to around 60%, Command or Control T, and let's zoom back initially. Now I could use that little witch's hat bump, couldn't I? But I think I want to add a degree of difficulty. So in actual fact, I am going to use that witch's hat bump, but if we look further along, there's another little bump up. Witch's hat, along, bump up. So the witch's hat in the second image, I'm going to try and line that up with that second bump, which is going to extend the ridge line almost all the way to the edge there. In fact, we could stretch that out a little bit, couldn't we? So it does. Just use your arrow keys to bump and push that around. That looks good on mine there. Click OK. So when I say line that up, you're only looking to line up the right hand upturn of the little witch's hat. Righto, opacity back at 100%, add a layer mask, Command or Control I to invert, B for brush. We've got our 100% flow and opacity brush in white. Let's see. Oh, that doesn't look good, does it? But if we come along here, there it is. See that witch's hat just joined in absolutely perfectly when we got there. If yours doesn't, again, and we'll use this seam, I'll use a smaller brush and we'll run along this little seam here. And look, if I was doing this for a print, I would be zooming into 400% and making sure that is absolutely pixel perfect for every single pixel. But for this example, this is more like how I would do a draft. When I come back and do the real thing, it could take me 8-10 hours to put this together properly. Okay. That level of commitment is something I don't expect you to potentially have. We're just having a bit of fun here. Okay? Just black and white, mix and match, in and out. The white brush will bring the image that's hidden behind the black mask through, and the black brush will paint it away until you get that seam perfectly and the ridge, or below the ridge line, looking nice as well. Now I'm going to drop the opacity down to around 40-50%, and we'll just feather with a white brush this sky in a little bit. Okay, that looks fine for now. Once again, we're going to add a curves layer because we need to manipulate both the black and the white here of the ridge and the sky. So add a curve, little black and white cookie, curves layer. Hold down Alt or Option and hover between the top two layers. Okay. And grab the little hand. We'll click once for the sky, once for the rocks. You can see they're hovering above those two towers of pixels here, if you like. If I click on the top one and drag it down, you can see it doesn't really affect the blacks, which is great. But the blacks also need to come down, but not as far. And I can even click on that and just arrow them down with my arrow key. Bump, bump, bump. That looks pretty good. So you can see the blacks only needed to come down a fraction. The whites needed to pull down quite a considerable way to make them match. Okay. We are doing fantastically. What image are we up to? Not the sky. Skip image 4. Go to image, not 5. Let's go image 6. Image 6, it looks like this. Command or Control A. Command or Control C. I really don't think we're going to hit our record viewers today. Maybe we will. Our record was 57. We went from 56 the day before yesterday to 57 yesterday. Maybe we'll break it today, but to be honest, I don't think this long composite is the type of video that is going to set any records. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Let me know if you can see how many live viewers we have currently, if we're getting close, but it wouldn't surprise me after an hour, and we're only halfway through. I think there's another half an hour to go, that we might be getting some drop-off of people wanting to maybe come back for the replay later. Anyway, be sure to subscribe and don't miss out on Thursday's really, really valuable presentation. Okay, what are we doing? Command or Control V to paste. Stick with it, Adam. Come on now. Lower the opacity to 60%. 50, 60 doesn't really matter. Command or Control T for free transform. Now this one, we have a bit of a, just next to the waterfall here, there's a bit of a line that kind of creeps up like so. And if we move our image up here where we can see it, there's a bit of a sweeping line here that we can use as a seam to match maybe. So try and match those sweeping lines. And what you want to do is just pull down a little to give yourself some room as well. Okay, so that sweeping line of the new image, look, just a little bit back from the waterfall like that should be good. And I know through experience that as this line comes up like so, you can see it meets here and we've got a gap there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch up vertically. If you have an older version of Photoshop, you can grab the center point and just stretch up without holding any keys down. For the latest version of Photoshop, you'll need to hold Shift down, grab the central middle point and just stretch up. What we're looking to do is drag this dark section up to match or above the background dark section of that ridge. That should do the trick. Okay? Click OK. Photoshop is just a series of problem-solving events. We had an issue there where it wasn't going to cover that edge, and we need this image to cover that edge so we can continue building. So we just stretch or make bigger. Opacity back at 100%. Add a layer mask. Invert, Command or Control I. B for brush. This is one of the more difficult ones. Zoom in. Opacity at 100% to start with. And look, I'm just going to rough this in actually. Let's rough it in. Let's rough all this in. All the way up there. Rough that in. We will use that seam there in a moment. In fact, I'll start doing that now. Now, what you can do to match seams, sometimes you want to change the hardness of the brush from 0%, but you can also kind of change the hardness of the brush by making it really, really small. Okay, it has much less opacity as I draw a line there, as opposed to see that softness of that edge. That's a much harder edge with a smaller brush. So what I can do with a small brush is, let me start down, the image goes all the way down here somewhere. Let's zoom in one more click. Get that, this is the seam we're going to be working on here for this particular image. If I come to here with a tiny, tiny brush and click just above the seam once, and then if I hold Shift down and move up, now keep in mind Shift draws straight lines between two dots. So I go to where the line is no longer straight, or for as long as I think I can get away with a straight line, hold Shift down and click again. That will kind of draw like that, and then I'll freestyle this bit just with my mouse. Down into there, freestyle that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Keep in mind, again, if I was doing this legit for a print, I would be in at 400% with probably a harder brush. In fact, I'm just going to freestyle. Whoop, Command Z if you make a mess. I'll just freestyle along this edge here. And I would be making this absolutely so that you couldn't tell that that was a seam. I think if I printed this, you know, doing it like this, you could probably tell. Now I'll make my brush a little bit bigger and I'll run back along there. Fill that section in. Wow, that matched up better than I anticipated, didn't it? Okay. And just if it's not quite matching, you know, mess around, move it around, black brush, white brush. It will eventually, you'll get something that looks pretty good. Keep in mind, just be a bit lenient on yourself. This is the first time. This is about as complex as it ever gets. Okay? I mean, there is more complex images, but it's basically just the same techniques. Just rough that in. You can see the sky looks horrible at the moment. Rough that in. Okay, now what we're going to do is switch to a black brush, and again a small brush, and I'll try and draw the seam back as best as I can. This is not as important, and you'll understand when we get to the next level. So with that black brush, I'm just going to run up this seam. A lot of people ask, why don't I use a tablet? You kind of get used to what you're used to, and when I was traveling in a caravan for an extended period of time, I didn't really have the space to spread out. Do I think tablets are good? Absolutely. Just rough it into here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect there. And you'll see why in a minute. But you get used to whatever you've got. If it's tablet, I tell you what I don't like. And look, you can get used to it too, but those track pads, those scratch pads, the Mac ones are pretty good, but the Windows ones are absolutely woeful. I think you probably agree with me. You can probably get used to them. Okay, I've roughed that in, or roughed that back. So I'm just going to paint that sky back, okay? So that's, already it looks pretty good to be honest, but what we're going to do, switch my opacity back to around 50, go back to a white brush, and a big white brush, not too big, something like that. Actually, let's even go lower, 50% flow and 30% opacity. I want this to come on really softly. And what I'm going to do is just dot this in, and it will, the sky, or that white, will look kind of like mist. Be careful not to bring in the hard edge like I have there. Brush that back. It will kind of look like mist. And one way to create depth in images, which we discussed, well actually we haven't gone into depth yet, but I did it on one of the example images in the critique the other day. You can pick up lots of different techniques in the critiques that I'm currently doing. One of the ways to create depth is to add a little bit of mist or use cloud or fog, and essentially that's what we're doing here. See how I've now pushed the background backwards? This is a classic landscape painting technique for pushing the background back, bringing the foreground forward by having deeper, richer contrasts in your foreground than what you do in the background. Okay? Look, we can even create a bit of fog over the top there. That's coming down, you know, kind of cascading down. Just have some fun. It's all good. And if you don't like it, there's some weird lines coming back in here on mine. You know, we can paint that away with a black brush. And what we could in fact do, and let's do that. Let's add a solid color layer. Come down to our adjustment layer icon. Solid color. And we'll help the blend. Let's go with white. Let's go with white, drag into the top left corner, click OK, lower that opacity, lower the opacity of that layer down, let's say 30%, click on the layer mask, make sure you click on that layer mask, Command or Control I, B for brush, X to go to a white brush, the 30% opacity, 50% flow should be fine, and we can paint in a little bit of just this white kind of mist, just to help blend those together. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. We're going well, guys. I hope you're following along at home pretty well. Now, that image we just placed is also a bit dark, isn't it? See how it goes bright to like dark? It's very jarring. So stick with me here. You need to click back down onto layer 5. So from the color fill, click on layer 5, add a curves layer, clip the curves layer to layer 5 by holding Alt or Option. Okay, grab the hand and click on the snow, and that's probably all we need to do for this one. Just drag up. Look at that, beautiful. Actually, what we have done is messed up the sky, haven't we? Can we? What we'll do, I don't think I'm going to get that back because the sky is very close to the snow, but now the sky is bright and it looks horrible up here. So what we'll do is click on the mask here of that curves layer 3, which is clipped down to our previous layer. B for brush, black brush, switch to a black brush. 30% opacity, 50% flow will work fine. And the black brush will just paint that clipped effect out of the sky there. And that will do for now. Okay, let's place a mountain on the other side as we come up, and then we'll place the background mountains in our sky, and we're done. Which one are we up to? This one. Most of these images are from Iceland. This one's from Norway. I just love the little pine trees or the large pine trees and the mountain in the background. Command or Control A, Command or Control C. You know, have some fun. This is not for everyone. Some people love reality, and I completely respect that if that's your thing. But, you know, this is just fun. If people tell you that's not photography, ignore them. You're the master of your own definition of photography. If you think it's photography, then it is photography. Okay, there's a bit of a trip step here for everyone. So make sure we click back onto our top layer, which is the color fill layer. Now we've Command or Control A, Command or Control C, back to image 1, Command or Control V. Once again, lower your opacity. About 60%. Command or Control T for free transform. I am going to hold Shift down and stretch up. We want that mountain to be really dramatic, and it makes the trees much more dramatic too. I've stretched up, so hold Shift and stretch on a new version of Photoshop, or just stretch on an old version of Photoshop. You can see my height is about 140%. That looks great. We're going to place this where? Somewhere, okay. As this mountain comes down, there's a nice edge that will match up with our second witch's hat, which will also help to camouflage that witch's hat out. Again, if you get it wrong, you can move it around with the arrow keys later. Something like that, I think. I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Click yes. Click thank you very much. Opacity back at 100%. Add a layer mask. Command or Control I to invert that layer mask. B for brush. Opacity back at 100. Flower back at 100. White brush. You can hit X on the keyboard to switch to a white brush. We'll zoom into that second witch's hat. Make our brush a little bit smaller. Like we did before, we always want to get that first seam matched. Look at this. Have we got it? Have we got it? As I keep coming down, no! Often when you keep running down the seam, it will just go click like a jigsaw puzzle. Not this time. So I'm going to make my brush a bit bigger and go back to a black brush. I think I can get it to match somewhere there. Command or Control T will save me moving tools around. And then my arrow key up. Arrow, 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 arrow. I think I like it there. Click OK. Back to my white brush. Okay, you can see the sky's not great. Let's rough this in and then we'll come back and refine it. Oh, the sky's actually pretty good, to be honest, isn't it? It's not bad. I'll just drop down to a 50% brush and just patch in this bit here. Yeah, that sky's good. You can see I've brought a little straight edge of the photo back here. It's very hard to see, very subtle, but I'll just paint that away there. Looking good. Opacity back at 100. Keep brushing that in. That was a black brush. Don't do that. White brush. Keep brushing that in. I'll zoom back a little. I'll bring that sky right up. That's fine. We might add to our canvas later. That edge doesn't really matter, but we'll brush it out anyway. We're looking good. Which seam are we going to use? Let's try and bring this down, down, down. I did want those beautiful pine trees. I think they're pine trees. They look like pine trees to me. Okay, you can see I have a natural snow line here. Can we use that? Whoops. Okay, stick with B for brush, a smaller brush. Can we use that? We don't want that, do we? No, we definitely don't want that. X, and we'll brush that out. Maybe that's the last tree we want there. Let's paint a little bit in above here. Okay. This would be a tricky section as well. I am going to switch to a 50% opacity brush and go to a black brush and zoom in, Command or Control plus. And I'm just going to feather that into that tree edge there, try and remove that tree. That's pretty good, to be honest. Pretty good. Let's go and work over on this other side here. Put my opacity back at 100, back to a white brush, and we'll bring this down. Snow to snow is generally a little bit easier. Make that brush a little smaller, and we'll just kind of pick out these little sections. Try and make a natural transition. That's no good. Go to X for black. You can see even I'm having trouble, and I've done this many, many times. Okay, I'm going to go to a lower opacity now. Just kind of feather those two together. Often feathering together is not a good option because you end up getting this kind of ghosting, blurry pixels. But in this case, I think we can get away with it. All right, looking good. Let's add some background mountains and then add some sky, and we can call it a day. What's the question? Reality. What's reality? Who knows? Yeah, reality is all twisted at the moment anyway. So have some fun, let your guard down, create art. You know, create art. That's what I've been focusing on the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I'm doing this every morning as well, and I'm lucky enough to still have work to do because I mostly work from home in any case. But the rest of the time I've been making art with my little boy and making art myself, and I just bought a whole bunch of art supplies. Hopefully they get delivered. But yeah, just have some fun. Have some fun, explore, expand, push the boundaries and see if you enjoy it. Maybe you don't, maybe you do, maybe you love it. Okay, let's add some mountains. I'm not sure which images. That's one we're going to use. Let's grab that. Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Back to number one, Command or Control V. Where do we place this? There. Yeah, I think here. We'll use that mountain as kind of our edge of frame. How about that? Let's bring this valley down in behind the waterfall there, kind of direct us into that waterfall. So we get a line running down into the waterfall like that. You can see this image already has a lot of mist and fog, so it's going to sit in the background nicely. But we could fix that up by adding a bit of mist and fog in any case. Lower the opacity, let's have a look at that. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. I'm just going to leave it that same size, add a layer mask, Command or Control I to invert. I'm not getting any complaints, so I'm glad. Hopefully this is coming through well. It was a bit stressful this morning with everything going a bit pear-shaped, but anyway. B for brush. Make sure we have a white brush. Will we go? Yeah, we'll go 100% opacity initially. I'm going to zoom back on this one, Command or Control minus. Bigger brush, and we'll rough this in first. And in fact, now that I've got that going, let's just go to a 50% brush, and we can just look at this. We don't have to put it all in, and it looks like it's kind of emerging from a fog behind this front layer. And these little beautiful, who watches Bob Ross on YouTube? If you have trouble sleeping and you suffer from anxiety like I do, and you like watching art or like watching these live presentations get put together, Bob Ross on YouTube, look him up, amazing. He's so fun and so relaxing and such a positive vibe and energy. You have a laugh. Check it out. Check it out, particularly if you have trouble sleeping. It's a nice thing to fall asleep to, I find. Anyway, that's my crazy, quirky personality. But as Bob Ross says, we get these funny little, embrace the happy accidents as they occur. You know, the clouds here are helping us to merge these two together and creating a bit of atmosphere in the background. So we embrace that. We see it happening and we say, yes, okay, that works. All right. Let's paint in a little bit more sky here. Look at that. We don't need all of it because by not painting in all of it, it looks like it's right off in the background. So just keep your eye as you're doing that, because sometimes you go, oh, well, that's actually already good. I don't need to smoothly blend that entire section. One more mountain. There's another one we haven't used. It's not that one. It is that one. Look at this crazy, craggly thing. Command or Control A. Command or Control C. Command or Control V. We're nearly there. Stick with me. We're nearly there. How long? Oh, we're only about an hour 15. That's not too bad. Command or Control T. Oops. Lower the opacity a little. Now with this one we're going to flip it over and use it on the opposite side. So if you right click in the center of the image, select Flip Horizontal. Just lower that opacity back down a little bit more. And again we have these little tiny mountains. You'll actually notice this little black triangular mountain here is this one here. So when I see something incredible, whether it be an incredible sky, an incredible mountain, I'll shoot it with a 20mm, a 40mm, an 80mm, a 400, a 200, all these different frames, because I know that once I leave that location, particularly in Iceland when it takes 3 days to get there from Australia, you know, when I leave there, I may not be coming back. So if I'm there, I want to get all these different pieces of the puzzle, potentially. I think that will work nicely just here. Again, the mountains flow down to the central point of the waterfall. So compositionally, we end up with lines, 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 all dragging to a central point, which I'm not sure I had in the original composition, in my original. Click OK. We're happy with that. Opacity up. Layer mask, invert to black, Command or Control I. I haven't been saying that, have I? Command or Control I, sorry about that. But if you've been with me over the last week or so, I think we're coming up on 2 weeks live stream. Woo! Well done, guys, and we're building it up nicely. Keep sharing, keep helping me build this because it gives me encouragement to keep on keeping on, keep on going. Opacity at 100%, and we'll just block this in initially. Okay, and I think we can probably do the same thing. Now that I get to that point, drop the opacity to 50. And we'll just put it in behind this mountain. Look at that. Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in. I wasn't overly happy. X black brush. And I want to pull this one back. There, yes. Back to a white. And this is what I would normally do. See that halo? I would zoom in like hectic amounts. What am I up to? 200, even like 300, 400. Get a little brush and you can actually, I can see the pixels. And I will trace those pixels around like this. I mean, the easy part is putting that draft together, but to get a print out of this, you want this to be, you know, pixel perfect, so to speak. Okay, get right in there. Get each one of those seams to match up as best you can, because you're spending the big bucks to print this out 2 meters wide. It's going to cost you a pretty penny to do so. My opacity wasn't at 100. I was wondering why it was a bit see-through. What did I just do then? Photoshop had a little bit of a moment. Okay, we're nearly there. We're nearly there. Stick with me. It's looking actually pretty good for a live edit. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a wrap there. We're going to take out that line, that hard line. You can see the middle section, there's still a hard line. I'm just going to feather off that bit a little bit as well. Oops, wrong buttons. I'm getting B for brush. Where's my brush? X, black brush, white brush. Oh, be careful. Something went astray there, and I moved from my mask onto the image, and now I was painting with black and white directly on the image, which is not good. Make sure you're always clicked on your mask. I don't know what happened then. Okay, the sky we're going to place over the top will fix that. Where's the sky? Was it 4? It's like a game of memory. How good was that? Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Making sure we've clicked on the top layer, Command or Control V. Lower the opacity, Command or Control T. And if we come outside the image, we get a little rotation. Looks like the light's streaming through here to me. Right here. Let's make it bigger so we can use this for the entire... No, let's not make it bigger. Let's make it like that. A little bit bigger. A little bit smaller. I want the light to be streaming in from the top, but I also want some of these fluffy clouds down in through the valley here. And then we'll duplicate this layer in a minute, or copy and paste it again and use it on the other side. Click OK. opacity to 100, add a layer mask, Command or Control I to invert, B for brush, we're on the home stretch, 100% to start with a white brush. That's it. Yeah, I don't need 100%, back to 50. Look how the clouds just make those peaks just sit into the background. Look at that. Just put those clouds back into the background there. There's the edge of those clouds. That's looking nice. That's looking really nice. We might just brighten that sky up a fraction. Add a curves layer on top. Hold down Option or Alt to clip it to the sky. And just one point in the middle, and we'll just drag up a fraction like so. That's great. Okay, back to the sky layer. Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Normally I have two skies for this, but the one will do, you get the point. And you might have seen this particular nice, beautiful, fluffy sky in multiple images of mine now that I've shown you, because it's my favorite. I love it. Once again, Command or Control V to paste. Command or Control T for transform. Lower the opacity a little. This one, well, let's leave it upside down, or the right way up. And now we can kind of use this little flicky bit to go through across those mountains. We'll make it a little bit bigger. That looks good. Opacity back up. Layer mask. Command or Control I. Woohoo! And paint that in. We'll use that same soft brush. It might be a little bit dark. We will brighten it up in a minute. That opacity is too much. Come down a bit. We'll paint a little bit across there, a little bit across there, a little bit there. In fact, I can see a hard edge from the sky below, so I'm going to come back down to layer 9 mask with a black brush and just paint that edge away. That's better. I'm pretty happy with that. Click back to my top layer. One last step, we'll add a curves layer. Curves layer. Hold down Option or Alt, clip it down, brighten it up a little. And look, if you want a little bit of those mountain peaks to come through a little bit more, just click back on layer 10 mask here, which is this one. You can always turn them on and off and see which ones are doing the damage or doing what effect. And with a very low opacity brush, we can even come down to like 10%. In black, we can like just bring through maybe an edge of that mountain range. You know, maybe we want to bring back that one in the background there. Maybe we want to add a little bit more fog across this one, across the tops of the trees there, from that sky. That's it. Let's tidy that up with a crop. If we've managed to get through this live stream without too many hiccups, that is a success in itself. Oh, I can see an issue. I can see an issue. I must have got just sidetracked. And I've rushed past, but we can go back and fix it. Tidy those edges up. Down here, I've got a horrible blend. If I go back down and click off my layers one at a time, I can see it's that blend there. Click on that mask, B for brush, and with our nice soft, we'll bump it up to about 20% or 30%, let's go. And with a nice soft white brush, we can just blend that off a little bit more. You can see I don't want that bit, that looks horrible. So black brush, paint whatever that was back away. And you know what? What you could also do is come back to, say, duplicate the background layer here, which if I hold down Option or Alt, that was our starting point. And if you prefer that really glossy look, you could like blend off the glossy into this entire region a bit better. In fact, that's exactly what I did in my finished photograph. Okay, so let's zoom in a fraction like that. Now, you would go and flatten this and then apply some contrast and some processing. Do the processing. So go and flatten it. Do some processing, and if you want to share it on the Easy Way Photography Facebook group, there's an Easy Way Photography Facebook group. If you are not a member, you can become a member by signing up to the course below. There's a Photoshop course below it's my most popular Photoshop course. Used to be $149. Now it is pay whatever you like, including $0 if you're doing it a bit tough. You can have the course for free. If you've signed up to one of our courses, you can sign up to the Easy Way Photography group as well. Look it up on Facebook, Easy Way Photography. Jump over there. I'd love to see if anyone made it all the way to the end with this particular image and what you came up with. I think myself, I'll give myself a bit of a pat on the back. I think I did a pretty good job for a live edit. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a pretty good job? And did you manage to follow along? I hope so. I'm going to go back and check the stream, make sure those images are perfect. But you should have all those images from Dropbox. If you love this, leave me a comment, leave me a like. I'm going to have a look at the comments in a minute, but the stream might drop out. Leave me a like, support the channel. Remember, subscribe and click notifications so you don't miss out on any of these videos that we have every morning at 10 a.m. and tell your friends and share. Woohoo! Let me have a look at the comments for a sec. Okay. Wow, you guys have been busy. 39.40. Okay, yeah, we had a bit of drop off there. That's okay. It's not all about the numbers. It's about giving you guys what you want. I had a lot of requests for this one, so I thought, yeah, let's do it. I knew it was going to be long, but anyway, let's see if there's any questions. Cheryl asks, should you ever rotate an image to make it match up? Absolutely, whatever it takes. Rotate, stretch, make bigger, make smaller. Move it around with those arrow keys. Whatever makes those seams match up best, we should do. Sue Ellen says the diehards will hang on in there. Hopefully we've got a few diehards hanging in there. Doug says he's hanging in there. Kylie had to zoom, but maybe she'll jump back later. Pamela, it's dropping in and out quite a lot, but quite watchable. I'm sorry about that. It might be my stream. It's more than likely my stream today, but it could also be yours. So jump back and have a look at the replay quality and see if that's any better. Reality, what is reality? Absolutely. Suki's mum says, Adam, you're making this look so possible. Love the romantic feel. Absolutely, give it a shot. You know, we all start somewhere, and hopefully this can be the somewhere where you start creating magical, fantastical, magical fantasy images. Kylie says, thanks for filling the house with another voice. My pleasure. So inspiring, awesome, love it. Terry's finishing just in time for his next appointment. Terry's in essential services in the healthcare system. Thanks, Terry, for you know, doing everything that you're doing to keep everyone healthy at the moment. It's much appreciated. Along with everyone else that's in essential services that's, you know, doing the things that they're doing, because you're doing an absolute incredible job. Love your work. Okay. Pamela, I'm having trouble. I have trouble selecting images that might go together. It's just experience and try and see. I think Pamela's referring to her own composite work. Yeah, just try it and see it. See what you can make work. You know, backgrounds that are fairly plain are a good place to start, and then placing in trees or houses or this, that, or the other. That's a good place to start. If you want to do something yourself, find a nice field, place an old shack in there, and see what you can do. See if you can get it to work really, really well. Okay, if you enjoyed that, absolutely, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate all of that. Remember, there's a Photoshop course down below. If you're having troubles with layers and masks, sign up for that. You can pay. It's for free if you like, or if you can afford $1 or $2, that is always much appreciated as well. Thanks for watching along. Sorry it was a long one, but it was always going to be. The replay is here. Take care, stay safe, love to your family, and I'll see you tomorrow with something, I don't know, a surprise. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.